and is published by the Oxford publisher. Thank you, Sanjay. Let's give him a round of applause. And finally, but not the least, our third guest speaker is Hamish de Souza. I don't know much about him because this is my first meeting, Hamish, but through our contacts with him via Jipan here, Dr. Jipan, I think you are a very adventurous, vibrant spirit who wants to explore other places, other culture, and at the same time to share knowledge with young people. So very glad that you are here with us. A very recent graduate. He just finished his MTech in remote sensing and GIS, Indian Institute of Remote Sensing, Tehran. Right now, he's working as data science engineer, PierSight Space. And also, he's working as GIS. And I was Googling this, what this GIS means. I think it's Geographic Information Systems, right? He's a GIS analyst at Morro Bay Development Foundation, Papua New Guinea. And he's working this through United Nations Volunteers Program. He has published articles and currently engages in 4 or 5 projects. Such a wonderful young person here in our midst. Thank you, Hamish de Souza. Let's give him a round of applause. Now, before I call the moderator for the first session, I would like us to first look to God in prayer. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we give you all glory and honor as we gather this morning. The founding members of this institution initiated this project of liberal arts college based upon you. And today, as we celebrate the 50th anniversary, we celebrate you for your faithfulness. And now, in celebration of your faithfulness, as we begin this event, we want to commit our guest speakers and all of us present here that our time spent here today will be fruitful, meaningful, and impactful. I pray this in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Now I invite our moderator to please come. Yes.
A very good morning to all of you, respected principal, Dr. Tefafile Piro, my colleagues, Dolly and Sanjay. It's a pleasure to have both of you, and also our third speaker. Today I'll be moderating the first two sessions, and I'd like to introduce myself to those who are not very familiar. My name is Bauna. I teach history in this college. I've been here for some few years teaching history. It's a privilege for me to be moderating these two sessions. I'm sure Dolly Kikon is not new. The name Dolly Kikon is not new to most of us here, and it's an honor to have Dr. Dolly Kikon to share the podium, to come and give a speech, talk here, a part of her research. When I was doing my MPhil, I remember that I emailed Professor Dolly Kikon, and she very promptly replied to my mail and gave her, she mailed back her number. And so when I called her to talk about some of my archival work that I was doing, my field work, I think when she picked up my phone, I think she was in the airport, and she still had time to talk to me. So I'm really grateful for that. So without wasting much time, I'd like to invite Professor Dolly Kikon, and she'll be, it's titled Abundance Living with a Forest. We will be having a Q&A after Professor Dolly takes her time, and I hope that we will have a very enriching discussion. I think the discussion, I hope that the discussion will unfold gradually. So please, Professor Dolly. Yeah.
A very good morning to you all. My name is Dolly, and I am a very proud Patkayan. I was here from 92 to 94, and I'm returning after 30 years. So it's amazing. A lot of things have changed, but some things have not changed. For instance, the stage. And so I call out my amazing classmate and lifelong friend, fellow traveler, Sashi, and also his very wonderful partner, his wife, who's a dear friend, Dr. Reverend Ellen, a powerhouse among the Naga people in terms of her justice work, her peace work. She's also a professor and the dean of the Center for Counseling at the Oriental Theological Seminary. So that's the gang, kind of like we hang out with. And Ellen and I are also colleagues at the Forum for Naga Reconciliation's dialogue on repatriation of Naga ancestral human remains from Oxford University to the Naga homeland. I see a lot of familiar faces here among the faculty, and they are my seniors. Some of them, I think, are my peers. And I would like to start by acknowledging actually the custodians of the land here, the Angami Naga people who were kind enough to give the land to the Patkai College, the founders, late Madam Shishak and our Honorable Reverend Shishak, and the commitment they had, the vision they had for this college. I think there is always a beginning, and we have to acknowledge that. And so we are on this land, gifted to us for education and for, I think, the greater good of all of us, the Nagas, and also, I think, everyone who has come from the neighboring states to study here in this college. When I was here as first year, I was told that there was an exchange that the Angami Naga elders came around, I think from Setukima and other villages, and there was no money that was taken for the land. I think some of you know the stories as young people. It was in exchange for salt. And salt for the Naga people, for our Naga ancestors, was very, very precious. If you look at the foothills of the Naga homeland and Assam, and all around eastern Naga homelands as well, salt was once upon a time a currency for our elders and our ancestors. So in so many ways, the history of this land, of Patkai, of the founders and the vision they had is actually tied to an indigenous practice. And more than that, to honoring the Naga indigenous practice of actually, in a way, respecting the reciprocal relationship, not with money, but with salt. It's taken me around 30 years to understand, I think, the value that I've learned here, and that's what took me to Manipur. So as my classmate Sashi said, I've just come back from Manipur 2 nights ago. I was at Makhel village. So Makhel is in Senapati district, and in Makhel, the Mao Naga people live in that village, and it's a very sacred village for the Naga people. Our stories of origin, who we are, our journeys about migration actually is in a sense grounded in Makhel. Gezokhono is also in the neighborhood. So if you are a Naga student, or if you are a researcher here, Hamish and all our guests visiting, I think it's important to know our roots and who we are. I was in Makhel village spending time with the children, because even today the children, the young school children in Makhel village have this tradition of carrying salt water from the salt springs down the mountain. And they bring the salt water, and it's very much a part of the tradition of cooking, considering it as medicinal, and also sharing with the community. I'm told that even in the Zeliangrong area around Jaluki, Peren, we have this culture actually till today of looking at the salt springs. Even in the Eastern Naga homelands, we have that. And around Pek, those areas, we have that. So this tradition and the culture that we have is very, very precious. So that's what, in a sense, I think took me all the way to Manipur, and I'm back. If you're on Instagram, my research is on Instagram. It's called Athletic Worlds, and you can follow what I have been doing with the children. And that project is connected with Ashifu Christian College. It's in the Pumai Mao area in Senapati district. And it's a very young college. And it was wonderful to spend time with Dr. Angam, who has a PhD in literature from Delhi. And he's a young principal there. And so it was lovely to know and learn about his vision and meet the students there as well. Today's theme is on navigating current challenges. And I just wanted to dwell this morning on actually a story from 1977. So in 1977, a space probe was launched by NASA to travel beyond the solar system. And it was Voyager 1 that they set off. Today, Voyager 1 continues on an interstellar mission. In 1990, the NASA Voyager 1 took a photograph of Earth. Carl Sagan, the late Carl Sagan, an amazing scientist, a writer, and a thinker, wrote a book capturing that moment of that image. And the title of his book was Pale Blue Dot, A Vision of Human Future in Space. He wrote this amazing poem and a reflective piece on that. And it has maybe around 3-4 paragraphs, but I'll leave you all to read later when you go back to your dormitories, to your room, and maybe after lunch. But I'll just read the first paragraph together as a reflection for all of us to dwell at this moment. The pale blue dot of Earth. Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know. Everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. Try to get the book and read when you have time, and I'm so excited to be here after 30 years. I want to share so many things with you, but there's something that I have to keep in mind, and it's called time. So I have till 11, and what I'm going to do is maybe a couple of things. First, I want to acknowledge my time here at Pad Khai from 92 to 94, and thank everyone, my teachers, the cooks, my warden, and I have some of my teachers here sitting with us. I think Madam Tiakala is right there. I can speak English because of you, thank you. And then my senior is also there, Kaini, who's now a giant figure in the field of education. She runs a school, and her husband, Pitungo, was also a student here, so this is quite a reunion for all of us, so a really joyful time, and that's why you will see me blabbering, not very articulate, because my heart is filled with joy at the moment. I want to also thank Madam Jyoti, if she's around, because I think Madam Jyoti, between Madam Jyoti and Madam Tiakala, I learned grammar, trust me. Very amazing literature, very amazing poems, and it was amazing in a sense, just the diversity of it. I was a Sunday school teacher from, I think, for my first and second year. Somehow Ms. Bunyo, our warden, thought that I could teach children. There was a touch house here, and I would come every Sunday after the service. I would rush back, and then I would come back. I remember all the mekhalas I wore as a PU first year, second year student was my mother's mekhalas. You know, those days, I mean, there was nothing that she could afford to kind of weave for me. So I would take my mother's mekhalas and I would like rush with the registrar, with the attendants. Some of my students, is Sope here? I always call him out because Sope, John Paul Raj, John was the first chaplain's son, and now he's in Geneva finishing his PhD. They were all here doing Sunday school. And so those are the memories, and I think Sope is now your teacher, right? Yeah, so imagine, okay. Not that old though, right? Still young, okay. And so I really I'm very happy to be here. The stage I remember, I think the last time I stood on this stage was doing the Sunday school farewell with the children and with my other Sunday school teachers here. And I think that was the last time. And I then remember the first time I was here at the stage, it was the Sashian gang. And we danced. I think as high secondary class 11, 12, we were quite cool, but we were cooler because we decided we would dance for Freshers' Day. So we had this major dance happening here. How do I wrap up kind of 30 years of my life since I left Pad Khai? A lot of travels, a lot of journeys, but a couple of things that I really wanted to tell you all. And you know, I speak the truth. The hymns that I learned, hey, do you still have power cuts here? Yes or no? Come on, you need to talk to me. Yes, right. So during my time, there were power cuts, and our amazing technicians who would switch on the generator would sometimes take time, right? And especially the Saturday services and the Sunday evening services, we would be in pitch darkness for maybe around 10, 15 minutes, and then what do? We sing. The girls sat on this side, the boys sat on this side, and we would sing. And seriously, trust me, all the hymns, Baptist hymns that I know, actually is from those moments, because you were forced to memorize it. Stanzas after stanzas. I feel so proud. Wherever I go in the world, I can close my eyes and sing, and people are like, oh, look at her. Right? Thanks to Patkai, right? So imagine, even in dark times, literally, I mean, when there's no electricity, you learn something, and I learned the hymns that way. And those hymns, do you still have the hymnals? The thick ones? Yeah? Yes? Okay. We had those, and it was amazing to sing the songs. The second thing that I wanted to share about my time in Patkai, so many, was actually the beautiful surroundings. It is a gem what you have. Honor the trees, the rivers that you have, the mountains that we were taken for picnics. We sat by the rocks and we had picnics. We had rice, we had pork, we had dal. I still remember those tastes wherever I go in the world. And it was really community building. It was really, really precious. And my turn as an anthropologist to look at ecology, to look at environmental justice, to care for the land, and to honor ancestral practices really also comes back to the things that I learned here on Patkai soil. The third thing that I wanted to share with you all about Patkai was actually its spirit of acceptance and the value. So when everyone's sitting like this, and you are inside a classroom, no teacher, I remember at Patkai, would discriminate. Right? They would open their books and they would teach you the value, they would honor the time that they were given to teach the students, and that was so precious. One of the things that I wanted to really underline was that I don't know many of you students sitting here. You may be like high secondary, you may be like BA first year, second year, third year, and you may be wearing your blue shirts, but outside of the blue shirt, you still have your own identities, right? You come from particular background. Some of you might come from very wealthy families. Some of you might come from, very stable homes with mom and dad, with siblings. Some of you might come from a household with a single parent. Some of you might be fostered by your aunties and uncles, and you're sitting here on the basis of some people's charity and goodwill. Right? So outside of the blue shirt that you wear, class privileges, the kind of inequality we have, these are real things. And even in 1992, those were real. Those were real. And so even in my case, my parents divorced in the mid-80s, in 85, 86, and it was quite a public divorce, right? Can you imagine? Even the word divorce is, in Naga society, even now, kind of like hush-hush. So it was quite a public divorce, my mom and dad's divorce. And so I came to Patkai as a daughter of a single mom. So it was kind of hard. And then I also brought with me as a student the baggage of coming from a family who suffered from different kinds of addiction. Right? So imagine, so in a sense, those days there were no counseling. I remember Paul Raj, our chaplain, would sit in that room. I'm told that the chaplain still sits there. And so we would all go and spend time with him and talk to him. So I think the role of the chaplain, the value, the prayers, were all really foundational. Were really, really key. So in a sense, I always thought about returning to Patkai. I've been quite busy in the few years, given my transitions and all, but I always wanted to underline that the values that you will get in Patkai, that you are getting in Patkai, are really solid foundations. Right? They're really foundations that will see you through wherever you go in the world. So learn to be compassionate, learn to be kind. Listen, I'll tell you one thing. If you're a mean person, I'm sure none of you are, but if you're a mean person, your classmates are going to remember that. From 92, there's a spirit of forgiveness in all of us. But if someone has been really mean and nasty, right, you remember because the hurt is there. And we have a counselor sitting there who's a trauma counselor, Dr. Reverend Allen. And so we have worked a lot on intergenerational trauma. You as peers have a big role in generating kindness, in generating compassion, in making sure that the children, your peers who come from difficult families, including elders who struggle with addiction, whether it's alcohol, whether it is drugs, you have a role, right? As peers, to pray for one another and to make sure that there is a level of acceptance. So I just wanted to make sure that these are some of the key themes that I give you all. Don't believe this. This is just a momentary thing. The directorship will end, my professorship will end, everything will end, like life. Right? So this is just temporary, but honor the values you have, honor the faith that you have. I think that's really, really key. What I'm going to do now is actually, I'm going to show you and not talk about where my life has gone through a film, not my film, but in a sense the turn that my profession, that my commitments have taken. And at the moment, it's really, really one on indigenous ecology. If you're wondering what is Professor Kikon saying, type it out, indigenous ecology. As indigenous people, as tribal people, what is our connection with the land, with the forest? Sometimes I think as Nagas, we are amazing in terms of talent, but we go a little bit off in copying too much. Right? We do amazing covers, but what about originals? It takes a lot of time and commitment to do originals. In the last, I think, couple of days, I've gone around Dimapur, the cafes and everywhere else. I think we are just like addicted to pop music. And I grew up in this world of pop music, so I too listen to pop music. But hardly do any of the cafes in Dimapur play originals by Naga artists. Right? I have listened to Taylor Swift, I've listened to Ed Sheeran, I've listened to Eagles, I've listened to every single pop star from the UK to Canada, to the United States, to Australia, here, around the cafes in Dimapur, but not a Naga star. Right? Not a Naga original number. And I think I want you all to dwell in this moment, to think from the little travels that I have done around the world and the fact that I teach in the United States. I learned from my indigenous colleagues and elders, from the centers, from the initiatives that they do. My beloved students at Patkai. Be original, founded in the spirit, founded in the voice, founded in the lessons of the lives that our ancestors have left for us. And that takes some hard work. Anyone can be a copy. But in the spirit, pray for wisdom to be that original so that you can build communities. So I just want to leave you all with this documentary. It's called Abundance, Living with the Forest. And I have my guide who helped me make the film. He's sitting right there. He's the forest ranger of Wokha district. Langsana, can you please stand? Yes. I want to underline one thing. In the last 30 years, whatever I've done, I haven't done alone. I've done with the blessings of the Spirit. I have done with amazing collaborators. I have done with the blessings of elders and, of course, of good wishers who come along. So you will see the documentary. It's around 21 minutes. It's about foraging, all the wonderful leaves that we eat around the mountains and why that's important for us to know. And the second thing, the documentary will be followed, I ask for your patience, by around 3 minutes, 30 seconds, around 4 minutes of a song. The title song of the documentary, which was composed and sung by my mom. My mom is 83 years old, and she was the first Lotha folk singer on India radio. She went through a hard marriage. After the divorce, she got into depression and really could never pursue her singing after that. But in her 80s, she sings the most beautiful hymns. She has found the love of God and the joy of living again. So when I was making my documentary, guess who came? My mom, 83 years old. And she was like, I'll compose the song and sing the song for this documentary. And I said, sure, why not? Right? It can be a testimony. It can be a testament to what we can do together. So I want you to watch the documentary and be still because our friend here will play her song, and then after that, maybe we can have a discussion. Thank you so much. So we'll watch the documentary.
next year je de no ro ni pu pen se de ana ni de ga to no 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 sha no ne de sa ni de pung pe le to ga da lu ma mo sha no ne e ka chi ne le ana de ni ha ko cha sa do le pung la zo mo je ha le na chi zo ga la ji yu da kya ga da o se no we de no ke ne le ka be si si e to le ga da ma shi ji pung ka li sa ne no shang e sa de li chi shi lo na chang chang ne li che ni e le mo ke ni li chi ne ma ni de no tan ke ko si ni de 조금만 발리오통 시초리아 에드노 회인키나 인삼시고 또 저거 날라드나 에드노 상정이 저라 조금만 상진 회 기다가나 못 주진 치우기 저거나 마 에드노 상정 인삼시고还这啥都吃了的，现在在有的，这些还一起就还多了。我这身上里知道了，这里不很舒服的，就身上。
근데 등이 졸려 몬초 별안 또 조나라네 엔 한참 단참 비반 줬어 요 시사도 하자라 왜저 니가 일hinso 마 에금주 시사도 요라 하나 상랑에 비도 오빠이 검지도 스필은 범마 나는 하메다 자가상 했다 또 랑교 란도 추고 조칭이 동비도 사살리도 하 에즈블야 창시 랑에 비도 오방 검지도 상약차 스필은 범마 요라 하나 상랑에 얘기 또那有了很难的台上，很赞动都我来那只有用很上的压力，都认真认真的俺罗哈是那看到，那个嘛都是那，嘛哈是那都是别人不买也完，对啥都个。시사도 상 시죠 시하 노래나 감초도 에서 저요 이 부분아 마 오라이 에서서 오한테 나타 상조 노래네 감오지 저거다 나하 나라고 하 에서 저거 시죠是咱们师傅不想他做都不做了암하지 모두 난 암하지 상 사연이 쪼도고 난 하지 앞이셔 또 쪼지도고 난하 장장 동년 리친도 부지도 좋아가
If we talk about indigenous people, it is how to say tribals, It's no, nature thing to close connection with something that is very evident in our say traditions or culture. It's na limulus somojang. It's na forage somojang. Jang tu punch it's na shijo. It's all traditional knowledge. Tamana it's na yani hanzo. And ang it's na ora especially ora ina it's na oyo hamina limulus hui somojang ha mina chungdi jang ha. Elomjo hoji knowledge monandaga. We have to also understand that at a poti make just go. Of course, we're going and harvesting at Hayanzo Dala. Hocheso economical when in Hat Sodangashona. Anna Jackrundigelum etina etimelum etan Lia Docalea. She ha elementa lamlo monantaga otongshi. Jackrundijo Voro Wonina disperse a lambo tongjang. For example, what's a hornbill? Kama Woroshina, hornbillina, epina, we need otongna, or 어쩐지 키스 담보고 선대신하대 도마 호지나 오토마 단치라 애들은 애들 오라이즈다나 오춘나 춤죠 오토마 동창죠 능 애들은 슈춤춤 달라 인도슬에 애들은 춤만 불러줘 인도슬에 tropical forests more than 90% of these trees are dispersed by birds and animals. They are the dispersing agents. When we think about harvesting or foraging, we're sharing with other organisms, with other creations. We all should start thinking about the necessary changes that we have to make in our lifestyle and also think about sustainability and which at the level which includes all other organisms as well.
Ede way of life elani kido ede bananilan changji ede na putang zeda sana ede no tatina oraji tuna ede do alam shenda godalia us ora lioji yakcha ede na ikambanala elani kido ede na kutang oraji lo huasana ede na limo mujanga ngoji ji tuna ede jili duji alam hona relation lia kama hansan ji jo timtum지죠 너무 고도 라이치라도나 로로이나 감초도 라이쳐 알라니기도 부칭지 철레도 하 로로이나 감초도 라이쳐 오임나지 액셉트 고금 베네초 칼레도 하이드네 데칠리로 링초지구나 알람 sentimental attachment lela also emotional attachment halela janglo it social attachment that make na only to kothang rasna edna uchuk phegido choji da make to khle ed pen open janglo ani ora janglo kothang jadasna pen ran janglo also open janglo kothang ruwa sana chilo jenanga ha limolan oyu hanan daro elam nga lai jona libo jang shangji hansi edna cho yumorus nang ha yen ha yana la khama foraging jo sustainable food system do ana consider chokoga orally mo shang yakcha tungna ede indigenous tung shangjo orally mo shang yakcha ede ekamji shangna support e chala sa shangna van chel chokona langa all under rolona ensan shala
이제 뭐도 만두국시나 봐. 뭐들이 이제 비시 비fe 골프나. 또 골프. 저들이 싹 빠다고. 저도 프라이 원에 커버해. 발라제. 두디다와들이 뭐 이tuk시 봐. 테스 발라제. 만두와 라가야 덱시 또 탈리지. नहीं हुदी ना लुचे तांगे ना जो तो वो लोहे खाओले हुए ना तांदो मान हार्ट ने कॉल गास्ते वाले जोन ना तो इन्हीं जोंगो गांधी नहीं पाई जाए पिछी पाई जाए जोन तो ले कुमांडो ले खाला वैसे ना खाला वैसे जोंगो गांधी ले कुमांडो दूर भी जाए कुमांडो सोड़ वैसे
시사도 부동산 약차 증하 정량 문담 혼소리도 시사도 임하야 시사도 언제노 담매로 지사 엔하 안하소 스메다 정지도 자가 당지 있자 오초스 에능아 에메다실로나 또 치시스나도 부지 언제 에지다가 어스 아저고나 하 저도 시사도 어지 점패 에보지 엘람 아총화 엘마 마타다 인치마 언제노 오레와 탕 시사도 승딜롱펜 장주고 너스 리모샹주고나 구딜리 구드나 구딜리 치야라 되사도 안가오지 알람뱀메나 주저 엘마 총화 창조 리고나 호텔이 실리치가 나서 나 등기 롬핑한도 오라이나 실리치가서 샹조 오리난치 인도도 나라드나 행조 오라이나 오라 디자일란 에데눈 테조 요한 마 보조 이치리 해다달리아제 또에사도 안하 엘마마타다 언데드니 쉐어 소저
향조 한차도 자, 예, 향조 한리고, 예, 어디로 미존 장로파, 자나레 페브라레 장로 좀, 이런 거 보도라 한자에 좀보 디스트릭 조금나 해름 뭐, 예, 한리고 저 에티라 감소로 고 초조 한부에 제제담 라가다 뭐, 도장, 이쪽 오야니나 공회동 또 향도 내티야라. 또 뭐 하유다 또 불러 좀나 또 March April 张东话了，这点就是发展了，这个买着过了还出去做去，我也没吃还一块做去，都不落啦。这我提这不多，我们这也那边做嘛，都这那都过了还出去做去，没吃还多一块钱都啥的，咁那这那都还没啥都洗出它，办大了就有这。
에데 메다 오요한 정til롬페 오장어동 에마이 조가 아포포조 로타메다 이마일레 에데점즈 모지자나 에데메다 천추키 와이초多样时刻，萨瓦莫吉，罗塔梅达，萨莫吉，埃迪波佐，蒙托比亚拉。에데 메다 오요한 정til롬페 오장어동 에마이 조가 아포포조 로타메다 이마일레 에데점즈 모지자나 에데메다 천추키 와이초 점즈 모지 몬토비아나 에데보카 양즈지로 에즈즈카 엠파이 조가 비밍택야 기아보 덴산 데란단 첨체달라 데란단 뱅카나라 셴보에니 라코달레 셴보나라 안라코체 변다살라 니비야라 에데양조에 윙이한봉 오동보니 와모지하 뼈이다가 닌첨체다 와나가나 콘베롤레 콘베론초 론초돈초 방향치야니 쪽갈라 오카오차 알로타존 대저포 몽컴대비알라 호이야레 호이야레
Hello. Well, that was a very interesting documentary. I think there was a lot of issues that were highlighted, and also, I mean, there was humor in that documentary, and so I mean, we would like to open up the floor for a Q&A, and for those who would like to ask questions to the resource person, please you can come to the front and ask your questions. And we have around 10 to 15 minutes. After that, we take a break for 5 minutes and come back for the second session. So maybe just to start off, I think what really captivated me was your concerns with ecology and knowledge. And I was wondering, initially sort of thinking about forests and how indigenous people sort of, the relationship between indigenous people and forests. And one thing that came to my mind was, the relationship between, so you're recording sort of the practices, and especially what really came out was you were trying to sort of portray the values not just between humans, but the relationship between humans and the environment. In that short documentary, what I noticed was it was very political. There was something, political in the sense that what we have is something that could be changed by an external agent, and towards the end you mentioned the government acts and so on. So can you just highlight a bit about that?
Thank you so much for the question, and I think you have caught on, I think, the message of the documentary and the reflections. Spot on. So thank you so much. Definitely when it comes to, I think, our surroundings and who we are and the relationship, like you so clearly point out, it is very much a part of our world, right? And how we connect with it. I'll just give you a very concrete example what happened this year. If you were following the media in Nagaland, how many of you have heard of the Doyang River? I think it was out in the news about the trash, right, that went to the Doyang. It's a sacred river, and it is the life source of the Lotha Naga people in Wokha district. And I was following as well, and the tons and tons of garbage and plastic that came out was astonishing. And I was in the US at that time in California, and I called my brother Lansotan because, as you know, he's a ranger of the Wokha district, and he was one of the leaders leading the cleanup. So he was on site, and it was one of the harshest months in terms of heat at that time in Nagaland. And even yesterday, we spent some time together talking about our concerns, and we were sharing, and do you know, I asked him, I said, Ango, the bottles and the trash that flooded Doyang, was it from Wokha town? And he said, no, Ata, it's from all across Nagaland. If you trace the water path of Doyang, it goes all the way till Kohima, right? The source of the streams and the waterways can be traced to the capital of the state, can be traced to Zeniboto. So there's no way that blaming the Lotha people and then keeping the responsibility for the Wokha district to do the cleaning is going to be enough. Come another shower, another storm, the water is going to bring the entire garbage down to the Doyang River. So what it's showing us in terms of definitely the ecology and the knowledge is also the knowledge of trash and how we consume, and the relationship that we have with the land, and what do we do with it. The only way, for instance, that we can actually talk about cleaning a river, it's also the Chate River, for instance, is that how do we recognize the relationality of the streams? Actually, the Dhansari in Dimapur has become a drain now. It wasn't like that when we were young. Yeah? So I think you're right when we say that this becomes political issues. When does the matter become political? Like the forest, for instance, like the food we eat, when does it become political? That's a homework for you. You can't look at me and say, no, when it becomes political. Right? When systems of governance, when there are conflicts, resource conflicts, when there are overlapping claims of who should take care of it comes up. So I think increasingly in the 21st century, with all the challenges that we have, the issues of cleaning the Doyang, the issue of what do we do with the number of dams that are coming up across the northeast, the issue of actually looking at the Tista. How many of you have heard of the Tista River? Right? From Sikkim, you know, there was a dam burst in the Tista. If you look at the map, I want you all to actually sometimes not only look at physical maps, the boundary between Manipur and Nagaland, or Nagaland and Assam, look at the pathways of rivers and what they tell us. Actually, the Tista and the Brahmaputra are all siblings, if you say, because the lifeline, right? The glaciers that's coming there. So I want actually us to take some of the lessons for a documentary in terms of the relationship and the connectivity that's there.
Yeah, the floor is open for questions, so please take the opportunity and you can ask your questions. If you can kindly introduce yourself.
Okay. My name is Chibentang Yathan. I teach international relations at Northeast Christian University, alumni of Patkai, batch of 2010. Just an observation with regard to the documentary, and also a question that will follow suit also. I'm really intrigued by this idea of the correlation that has been shown through the documentary in terms of the seed Am I audible?
Going a lot, no? Ah.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry for the trouble. Okay. I just a correlation between the seed. The lady that she was explaining about the seed, how it's important for us to preserve the seed. I was just an observation with that one. Very interesting observation that I found is how the seed in a way represents the indigenous identity, right? That we need to preserve that. I mean, the indigenous identity, our culture, is that a seed? Okay. And that's something that I've drawn out. And it's important that how us, that very indigenous practices, the values that we have, that needs to be preserved, because that is like a seed that needs to be, that needs to fall on the ground, and that needs to proliferate and mushroom more, right? Second thing, I mean, we were all laughing about the young boy. I mean, I was just telling Odi Sashi that he is like the villain of the documentary. But then I find it very interesting because I saw something there. How he, in a way, is portraying the modern society. Okay, the young boy portrays a lot of us in the sense how we are becoming disconnected from the culture. Because he was, if we notice, throughout this conversation, he's speaking in Nagamis, right? He's not speaking in the Lotha dialect. So I don't know if it was purposefully made like that, but then if it's not meant to be, right? I feel that there's, in the sense that it's portraying a lot of the Naga society, a lot of us who are not willing to indulge in preserving our indigenous dialect, which is very much part and parcel of our culture. Okay, that is the second observation that I had. With regard to the question, of late I've been teaching a paper on development, right? And then my students are here. We're discussing on modernization, right? And here, since you have given a reference of the Forest Conservation Act, right, which in a way it's like a intrusion of the indigenous culture, or indigenous, the intrusion of the indigenous space through the state. So, to what extent do you consider the state as an agent of change, or to what extent do you consider the state as a agent of a modernizing, agent, yeah, or a state as a agent that is trying to intrude our space, our indigenous space? Would you consider the state trying to do that through the reference of the Forest Conservation Act?
Thank you so much for the question, and I think, okay, a couple of things. Longshibemo was such a delight. He came with the film crew, and he was so enthusiastic, and he was so interested in what was happening that he had to be in the film. And I was the director, and the way that he was filling the vegetables, the way that he was looking at the forest. Longshibemo, after the film, Longshibemo is a school dropout. So he didn't finish school. So he was interning with his uncle, Rendo, who is a videographer and works with me. And so after that, he got into an internship training for videography, and he's currently in Tejpur. A round of applause, come on. Right. So Longshibemo has many siblings, and he couldn't study, but he loves the camera, he loves what he's doing. So we found a fellowship for him, and he's there on a one-year training at this wonderful ecology hub called Green Hub, which is run by this visionary called Rita Chaudhary, a very renowned filmmaker, especially in terms of wildlife, documentary conservation. And so I'm still in touch with him. The last time that we connected with him, he's a child. He was like, I need a phone for my photos. I said, okay, that's done. So I think he's also going to get a new camera so that he can be in the field. And imagine I'm talking so much about him because they are the future. Right? They are the future. So how do we work together on this? So Ango, you are very right, in a sense, Chipenteng, to say that he does represent actually what a large number of our society and people go through. Nagaland, I think one of the recent statistics showed that has the largest number of school dropouts at the primary level, at the primary school level nationally. So in a sense, I feel that all of us, not only for us, but all of us in this room, our vision and our meaning and our commitment for life is already sorted out, given the service that we have to render to community. And I think that is the good thing about our tribal societies in terms of the value of education that's in a way connected with the relation, not only with forest, but also with community. The seeds, what do we do with it? And why was Longshibemo talking in Nagamese? Longshibemo's, I think one of the parents is Ao, the other one is Lutha, and he's lost his language. So he can neither speak Ao nor Lutha, so he speaks in Nagamese. And that is also the case in many of my families, for instance. So what do we do about language? In my own work, I'm part of this institute in Guwahati. So if you go to Guwahati, visit the Northeastern Institute of Language and Culture. So it's run by a wonderful Jesuit priest. He's the first director. And I'm one of the senior researchers and advisors for this center in Guwahati. Which is part of the Catholic Church, and actually they are documenting the work of language in the region. And according to the UN data, it shows that no language in the northeastern region of India is actually safe. It can all be categorized as endangered, not even Tenedi and all, right? We say that there's a lot of written language, especially for the Angami people, but that is also not safe in a sense. So in the next 50 years, there's going to be a huge language loss. Culturally, we have to address this with a sense of urgency because our go-to thing is a shame. That culture of Sorum Kelana, hey, it should not be that. In the case of Longshibemo and so many of us who come from broken homes, who do we speak the language with? Who do we speak the language with? And some children who have pre-existing conditions grow up in hospitals, right? All their lives, they are seeking medical care. There's a need to survive. So it's okay if they speak in Nagamese. Do we have the equipments to actually go back to language with compassion? Or the only thing we have in community, even among us who come from inter-ethnic, inter-tribal marriages, to constantly shame? I think some of you, especially like Lotha group, Angami group, Ao group, who speak perfect languages, I think you will laugh at people who can't speak that language. And maybe you don't even include them in some of the tribal student associations around. Because that's the go-to thing, right? To shame people. And why should we? Right? Can you imagine? In a diverse environment like Patkai, to be able actually to help one another pick up language. Till my mother's generation, my mother could speak Angami because she worked in Kohima, All India Radio. She spoke Assamese because she studied at the Golagat Girls School with the American missionaries. She could speak English, she could speak Lutha. In our generation, look how poor we are in terms of language. So I think that connection is very important. And the connection with forests, okay, here's the thing, here's a secret. The connection with the loss of forests for us indigenous people is also connected with the loss of language. So no matter how fluently you speak, if you are not caring for the rivers and the forests and praying for them, what's going to happen? You're going to lose your language because the names of the birds, the animals, the plants in our indigenous languages, if they no longer exist, what language are you going to use to invoke them? So researchers around the world who study language and culture and this connection are paying attention to this triangle. When you pray, what are you going to say? Gastonai hornbill the haraishe, oh Lord, bless the hornbills that are extinct. How? We are so central, right, in destroying, in the role of being destructive. So I think that's something that I wanted to put. So thank you so much for putting this on the plate. The state, I think, that's a very, very broad question in terms of the role of the state and how do we deal with that. In my first book, Living with Oil and Coal, I wrote about the different states that we have. For us as Naga people, when we talk about the state, it's Rio, na? Kohima to Kurijana. So our immediate go-to, the concrete idea of the state is Kohima and Rio and NDPP. Sometimes Delhi is very far off. Delhi becomes visible when the rocks are falling. Na? Oh, a national contractor to Bonek and sub Girisha. So in a sense, for me, when we are maybe conceptualizing the state, one is actually the theoretical understanding of the state structures that we talk. The second is also important because this is how your parents and maybe my grand aunties and uncles in the village conceptualize and make the state real. So here, when we talk about the role of the state, are they destroying lives in the forest or are they not? In a frontier region like the Northeast, there are different representations of the state. One is the military state. One is the frontier state, which constantly extracts oil, tea from Assam, here from Nagaland, soft skills, everyone becoming waiters, waitresses. And then, of course, the third is the contract, right? The contractual state. So how do we make sense of that? And I'll tell you one thing, when we as tribal scholars, as indigenous scholars come up and we theorize it, there's a lot of resentment, there's a lot of opposition, because we are not supposed to have brains to theorize like this, right? They're frowning and all, they're like, what are you all saying? And that's when we use our brains, that's when we use the power of the Lord, that's when we use our wisdom to come up, to scale up, and to challenge. I challenge you all, my students. I know we're running out of time, 5 minutes over, but give me 10 seconds. I challenge you all, students, study and work hard so that one day, as scholars, we can contribute to the world of theory internationally, right? In a term, in Tenidia, in a Lotha term, in an Ao term, in a Chakasang term. So that is the power. Right now, we are studying all those theories in French. One day, pray that we are able, in our wisdom, to be able to contribute to global dialogues in that way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We're running out of time, so we'll close this session. And the takeaway from this session is that, or something which I keep discussing with my students as well, I think what happens is that the ordinary and the mundane becomes really meaningful. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Amazing moderator. Thank you so much.
I will take a break for 5 minutes and we'll come back for the second session. Okay, before, I think we're a bit, we're not on schedule actually, we're a bit late, so apologies for that. But for the second session, the speaker is Sanjay Barbora. The paper is titled Multiculturalism, Values and Solidarity, Education and Coming of Age in Northeast India. So I'm really looking forward to this paper. There's so much of resource and insights for us as an institution as we celebrate 50 years of Patkai's existence. And I think there can be a lot of takeaway for us, frameworks on addressing certain questions and also sort of engaging with certain questions that needs our attention. So I'd like to call Sanjay Barbora to come and take his time. Can we give him a welcome him?
Thank you, Pauna. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me here. At the outset, I also wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land and respect their elders past, present, and emerging. I also wish to dedicate this talk to my former student, Kirsten Mai Castle, who died earlier this week. She and her unborn baby died earlier this week in San Mateo, California. As I speak, you will understand why I'm dedicating this talk to her. She was an exceptional woman, 37 years of age, and she worked all her adult life, on prison reform and teaching prisoners in jail. My talk, as the moderator said, is titled Multiculturalism, Values and Solidarity. These are three themes I will speak about. But at the outset, I wish to express my sincere gratitude to the organizers of this esteemed event for their kind invitation. Their efforts in bringing together such a distinguished gathering are truly commendable. I also want to thank Dr. Shashipokim Jamir for the initial invitation to speak and the subsequent reminders to adhere to deadlines. It is a great honor to be invited to Patkai Christian College. This institution has been the intellectual home for many generations of youth from the region, including my partner Dolly and her close friends, who have also become mine. In the 1980s, I heard of the college from my Naga classmates at St. Edmund's School in Shillong. They spoke about the marvelous opportunities offered for young, talented people, especially those who were musically inclined. As I grew up and left the region for my higher studies, I came across many graduates from this college, and I can attest that many were indeed exceptional musicians, so Madam Shishak did a great job with them. I was fascinated as a child when I heard that a college had been named after a hill range. In the Taya home language my ancestors once spoke, Patkai refers to a place where a sacred chicken was cut. I am unsure, but it could refer to the rituals that different waves of Taya home migrants had used since the 13th century. After all, rituals and paying obeisance to ancestors and spirits continue to be part of our repertoire in modern times as we begin something new. Historians tell us that the Ahoms were forced to leave their homelands in southern China because of internal conflicts and natural calamities. As successive waves of Thais spread from their homelands to various parts of Southeast Asia, including northern Thailand and eastern Assam, they would have had to appease the spirits, gods, and demons who had put obstacles along their way. One such obstacle might have been the mountain passes that create a narrow pathway from northwest Myanmar into Assam. Each group that crossed the mountain pass to enter eastern Assam would have sacrificed a white fowl to read the signs as they made their way downhill. Such rites of passage are common in most human societies. Some may have their origins in ancient times, but have survived into our age. They help build values in individuals and communities that can be passed on from generation to generation. Some of these issues that I would like to raise in my talk, some of these are issues that I would like to raise in my talk today. I want to dwell on the following questions. How have institutions like Patkai Christian College or St. Edmund's School in Shillong nurtured values that have helped create a better society in our region? What are these values? Does every person pick up the same codes to function in society? Finally, what happens when we are confronted with responses from individuals and institutions that make it harder for us to coexist as a species on this planet? I admit that these are profound questions, and we may not have ready-made answers to them, but this is an excellent opportunity to place them before you. Let me start with the first theme, multiculturalism. We live in a multicultural world where most people speak at least 3 languages, if not more. Our knowledge of different languages help us navigate our complex corner of the world. As children, we picked up languages effortlessly. My Roman Catholic school in Shillong was home to boys of every ethnicity from the Northeast. In the wooded heights of Shillong, we were more concerned about our Saturday walk into town and our upcoming football match. Civil strife and endless strikes happened in the Brahmaputra Valley and to people whose mother tongue was taught in our English-speaking schools as second or third language. It did not touch us as we debated the right course of action for the terrible food that they served in the school's refectory. When we brought up the troubles around us, we did so detachedly. We were products of strange compromises that our parents had made to climb up the social ladder, some just 1 generation ago, as representative of stubborn people, while others, perhaps 2 generations ago, as beneficiaries of colonial economic and political largesse. In our distinctive boarding school, we were products of a peculiar historical process of class and political stratification, where our parents, who were either planters, tea planters, bureaucrats, politicians, or entrepreneurs, they wanted to shield us from the realities of the world that they had barely escaped from. What was this world they were trying to escape, and why? The answer to this question sharply delineates life experiences within India, especially inside Northeast. None of us kicking leather balls and each other's shins on the school football field could claim centuries of caste oppression as Dalits, nor could we feign righteous anger about the weight of religious strife or oppression. Yet, we were the children of people who felt burdened by marginalization and people who thought that an English medium boarding school run by strict Irish missionaries in a place slightly far away would ensure our escape from the worldly realities that our parents were trying hard to cope with. I almost got away. My college and university years were spent between Bombay and Delhi, where I had access to a universe of books and ideas. These were also places that made me aware of my peers' differences and experiences. Despite the convergence of class interests and political positions, which generally was very left, there was always this little feeling that those who are not from Northeast India didn't quite get it. It permeated our conversations and everyday lives. There were times when the old Irish Fenian graffito, which said, and I quote, "To those who understand, no explanation is necessary, and to those who don't understand, no explanation is possible." This slogan seemed like the only way out of dialogue and uncomfortable pauses. Somewhere in the middle of plantations in Upper Assam, the small towns of Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh, the idea of the inchoate Northeast was changing. We know, as Dolly just told us a little while ago, that our land is a reluctant frontier for South Asia and Southeast Asia, where history and politics collide with the express purpose of creating a militarized region. We also know that we live in an area that has remained a state of exception in democratic India for over 5 decades. Yet, more is needed to describe what it means to live here. Our linguistic and cultural diversity has been under pressure since the late 19th century and early 20th centuries. Many ultranationalists in Assam would like to blame migration, but their arguments do not convince me. Whether temporary or permanent, migration leaves us more prosperous in learning new languages and cultures. However, the modernist idea that only one language can propel us to prosperity is destructive and damaging. It quickly creates hierarchies and a power structure where some languages are considered more important than others. Think about it. In the past 100 years, or maybe less, we have slowly been persuaded that only one language can give us and our children a better chance in life. We've punished children in schools for speaking their mother tongue because someone decided it would be harder for them to learn English or Hindi if they continued to talk in Galo, Lotha, Khasi, Garo, or any of the beautiful languages we speak in this region. When we do not understand our neighbor's language, we are prone to making assumptions about them which can lead to more significant conflicts. I taught a program on peace and conflict studies at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences until recently. There, we emphasized the importance of knowing many languages so students could reimagine entering different worlds. South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Committee, or the TRC, was taught every year. Our students were skeptical about the power of faith to overcome decades of violence and trauma perpetrated by the apartheid regime. South Africans spoke many languages, and apartheid had kept each community apart. Yet, the TRC went on for more than 4 years. Even though many continue to doubt its outcomes, it remains one of the few attempts at national reconciliation after a violent suppression of people's rights. To convince my students, I would make them listen to the South African national anthem, Nkosi Sikelele I Afrika, God Bless Africa, sung in 5 of the country's 11 official languages. We would go through the entire national anthem in Xhosa, Zulu, Sesotho, which are indigenous to Africa, and 2 settler languages, Afrikaans and English. That is when my students opened their hearts to what Archbishop Desmond Tutu said, and I quote what Desmond Tutu said: "It is not about patting one another on the back and turning a blind eye to the wrong. The true reconciliation exposes the awfulness, the abuse, the hurt, the truth. In the end, only an honest confrontation with reality can bring real healing." End quote. My students and I would then begin our difficult conversations about values and listening to the languages with which we express love, hurt, and hopes. Which brings me to the second thing that I wanted to talk about: values. One significant outcome of a strict Roman Catholic upbringing at school was the insistence upon penance and forgiveness. We were always taught that being truthful was right, even if it made us unpopular. Love, mercy, suffering, compassion, and morality were values that we woke up with and had to practice as diligently as possible. These values saw us through difficult times. It kept us grounded and routinely reminded us that we had a conscience. I often wonder about conscience these days. We have many wars being fought across the world right now. Some, like the ones in Central Africa and East Africa, have been going on for a while without any anguish from the rest of the world. While Western countries have rightly condemned Russia's war against Ukraine, their double standards have been exposed in their response to Israel's continuing occupation of Palestinian West Bank and Gaza, especially the 9-month-long decimation of the Gaza Strip. However, more than collective political values, it's the personal ones that bother me more. In the past few months, the wanton display of technological and military power exerted by the Israeli Defense Forces has been disturbing. Its smart bombs and drones have devastated Gaza and left thousands of people dead and more than 500,000 displaced. In April this year, my colleagues at the Department of Sociology at Santa Cruz and I read a chilling story about an artificial intelligence program that had contributed to creating kill lists for the IDF. Written by a brave young Israeli journalist and a documentary filmmaker, Yuval Abraham, we read about a special machine that could rapidly process massive amounts of data to generate thousands of potential targets for military strikes in the heat of war. Such a machine exists. The Israeli army has developed an artificial intelligence-based system called Lavender, and it has played a central role in the unprecedented bombing of Palestinians, especially during the early stages of Israel's campaign in the Gaza Strip. Formally, the Lavender system was designed to mark all suspected operatives in the military wings of Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, including low-ranking ones, as potential bombing targets. During the early stages of the war, the army gave sweeping approval for officers to adopt Lavender kill lists, with no requirement to check why the machine made those choices or to examine the raw intelligence data on which they were based. One source, talking to Yuval Abraham, stated that human personnel often served only as a rubber stamp for the machine's decision, adding that usually they would personally devote only about 20 seconds to each target before authorizing a bombing, just to make sure that the lavender-marked target was male. This was despite knowing that the system makes what it regarded as errors in approximately 10% of cases and is known to occasionally mark individuals who have a loose connection to militant group or no connection at all. Lavender marks a new alarming set of values disregarding international law, especially during warfare. Even in Israel, previous governments and military leaders had established strict protocols for targeting enemy military commanders in their homes. Since this was a brutal method of attacking their opponents and lacked proportionality, such targeted actions were chosen after months of deliberation and intense scrutiny of legal principles. However, this changed with the introduction of Lavender. Using data generated through WhatsApp and other instant messaging and voice-over internet protocol services, Lavender created kill lists based on patterns the machine taught to mark out as suspicious. Even a greeting from a low-ranking militant to his aunt, wishing her good health, would have been marked off as the beginning of a suspicious network. Soon, the suspicious network would extend to the aunt's extended social network, comprising her friends, colleagues, children, and their networks. In this manner, Lavender would create a kill list based on communication patterns between ordinary human beings. When the program decided that all the possible combinations of the network were together in one place with the original low-ranking suspect, it would generate a kill order, which, as I mentioned a little while ago, needed less than 20 seconds to verify. I pause here for a moment to let this sink in. As a sociologist, I am also trained to look for patterns of collective human behavior. My colleagues and I spent several days agonizing over this information that Yuval Abraham and his colleagues had released to the world. Inside our minds, we were grappling with the same question: could a sociologist have contributed to the Lavender program? It took me back to one of the most honest, heartfelt biographies I have read. In his book, Beyond Boundaries, Irish political scientist Benedict Anderson expressed compassionate resignation because most of his best students were probably joining the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, after graduating from Cornell University. So it is entirely within the realm of possibility that there are sociologists who sit across a class from teachers like us and will eventually join a technologically cutting-edge human-machine program like Lavender. What brings hope in such a dismal time is the idea of solidarity. Yuval Abraham wrote this extraordinary piece for a radical online magazine called Plus 972 magazine. Plus 972, in case you don't know, is the area code for Israel, just as plus 91 is the area code for India. You can access the journal online at www.972mag.com and read the brave journalists contributing to it. Click on the contributors sections of the menu and find cartoon-like sketches of young people with Hebrew and Arab names. It does not require much to realize that the Palestinian people who run this fantastic online magazine are young Israelis and Palestinians. Just like the brave South African anti-apartheid activists before them, they see a shared future for both communities with refreshingly bold clarity. This, for me, is the example of solidarity across ethnic divides. It is glued with a shared idea of ethics, values, and respect for human differences across culture and languages. As my colleagues and I agonized about our students potentially becoming part of an oppressive war machine, the young people on our campus at Santa Cruz began their protests. The undergraduate students pitched their tents at what constitutes the main center of our campus. They set up their temporary homes between wooden buildings built in the 1970s and the main store. They called it their encampment, and within 24 hours, they were joined by members of the Students for Justice in Palestine. A few hours later, more students joined them. 48 hours later, as I was coming out of a lecture, I saw 4 masked indigenous women talking to the students in Spanish. My student Justin looked at them and waved a clenched fist and said to me, "The Zapatistas are here." 4 days after the encampment started, the campus and the entire university were delirious. Someone had seen Angela Davis on campus, and everyone wondered if she would speak at the encampment. That afternoon, my undergraduate class asked to be excused because they wanted to hear Angela Davis speak. I gladly agreed because I wanted to listen to her too. She was one of the first Marxist feminists I read as a college student, and her entire life inspired my generation. Her involvement with the Communist Party, her exile, association with the Black Panthers, and her influential campaign for prison reform were part of our education in college and university. A few weeks later, the graduate students, those doing PhD research, went on strike. The entire University of California system comprises 9 campuses and is unionized. The Union for Graduate Students is the United Auto Workers, a well-known socialist union with almost 400,000 members. The graduate students were protesting the assault on fellow protesters at the UCLA campus a few days earlier in Los Angeles. The UCLA students had begun their encampment earlier than ours, and it was, like all other student encampments in the US, peaceful and inclusive. Many of its co-organizing members were Jewish American students. Still, the UCLA encampment was brutally attacked by Zionists and paid mobs while the police stood and watched. The UAW strike was called to draw attention to the unsafe work environment on the UCLA campus. That is why our students, located several hundreds away from Los Angeles, stood up in solidarity. My colleagues and I had jumped the gun regarding our worries about what the students were learning in class. The young could express solidarity with the oppressed, and I think they learned some of this in our classroom. Indulge me one last memory of solidarity across time and space. On 5th May 1981, the Irish revolutionary Bobby Sands was martyred in Longkesh prison in Northern Ireland. His death was not inevitable. He and his comrades, all of whom were members of the Irish Republican Army, had gone on hunger strike to demand the status of political prisoners. Bobby Sands began his fast sometime in March 1981. I distinctly remember the Irish Christian brothers who taught us were distraught. They asked us to pray for strength and courage for Bobby and his comrades. Alas, that was not to be. The British Prime Minister, Mrs. Margaret Thatcher, refused to grant the IRA prisoners their demands, and Bobby refused to end his hunger strike. For me, it was the earliest act of solidarity that I can remember. It was not forced, nor was it difficult. How could one not feel the passion of a young man who wanted dignity and freedom for his people? Before he died, Bobby Sands wrote this one line, and I quote, "Our revenge will be the laughter of our children," unquote. I would like to end here with the role of institutions. Let me conclude here with the role of institutions in nurturing an environment of multiculturalism built through the imparting of values. Most institutions encourage some degree of multiculturalism, even though we are going backwards on this count in India. However, institutions that impart education only sometimes encourage revolutionary ideas. They prefer stability and order, almost tilting towards the status quo. Our school, St. Edmund's, was better known for the number of bureaucrats, politicians, and businessmen that went through its classrooms. No one remembers the names of those who sought reform and change. Despite all its radical intentions, even my California university eventually called the police to clear out the encampment against the wishes of faculty and students. I understand why they cannot call for the overthrow of oppression and oppressive systems. It has to do with the safe space that it provides for those who can think differently. As students graduate from these institutions, they become stalwarts of industry or entrepreneurs and become aware of a world of inequality and injustice around them. Institutions, therefore, are the safe spaces that allow for these differences of experience and intent. Looking around me, I am reassured that Patkai Christian College has offered a safe and nurturing space for several generations of scholars who have passed through its gates. It lives up to the name my ancestors were supposed to have given to the hilly mountain passes they crossed to come to our land. It prepares the young for a problematic world. May it grow and its graduates find their calling with grace and dignity. Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you so much, Sanjay, for the very interesting paper. I would encourage the students to come forward and engage in the discussion through questions. The mic, you can come forward and ask your questions. This is specifically to do with, it's closer to Patkai in terms of the theme, the sort of message that is sort of conveyed, the sort of idea of education itself. So I think this is very central to an institution like Patkai, and I think what sort of really interests me is the question when you started, how have institutions like Patkai Christian College nurtured values that have helped create a better society in our region? I think that's a really, really important question that the current faculties and administrators have to sort of respond to. And I think that these are questions which needs to be addressed, not just through the experiences of alumni and people who have been associated with Patkai, but I think these are questions that needs to be written down because it also talks about what Patkai should be after, since we have reached a milestone, 50 years. Where do we go from here? So I think that that's a very, very important question, because I think the danger is that we may sort of settle to, continue maintaining certain status quo even in the institution and not really think about the values that you have discussed, that you have shared. So what is education? I think that's one of the most important things, and I would like to sort of, since nobody is coming forward, I would like to ask you some questions. You have sort of, I really like the way you sort of had sort of navigated the themes that you were discussing, and I think it's sort of the ease with which you sort of brought out the sort of themes and the question and the way you addressed, and it's not so much about giving answers, but I think it's more about engaging with the issues that you were sort of trying to open up. How do you look at sort of education in the current context with NEP coming in? A lot of it emphasizes skills, but here you have not used a single word term skill. You're emphasizing on values. So how has education shifted from, what educators think that education should be, and how administrators sort of are directing what education should be? Can you just give some thoughts on that?
Thank you. That's really a very deep question that requires a lot of reflection. But I think one of the things that we need to remember is that institutions like the ones that we are part of here, universities, they are quite old. They've survived more than 400 years. You're 50 years, but you follow a structure that began after the Reformation in Europe and has continued from that time. So in a sense, they are meant to impart certain universal values. And overnight, we are being asked to transform these institutions that give us universal values to becoming ones that manufacture skill-oriented people. I think skills are important, but in the larger scheme of things, they're not as important as the values that you pick up. So, for instance, you could have a curriculum that includes a lot more sort of outreach to community, right? So in a sense, as teachers, we have to do that extra work, make sure people are able to understand communities they come from, because a lot of times, as I said also in my talk, that education seems to be about forgetting where we come from and to be catapulted to some space outside the planet, which is not possible for everyone. Instead, what if we flip it and say, look, let's remind you where you came from, be proud of where you came from. And a little while ago, I remember someone asking Dolly the question about what does the state do? Is the state always modernizing? The state will always give us the dreams that it thinks we should follow, right? And unfortunately, in the last 50 years or so, the only things we've begun to sort of aspire for are the mistakes that people made during industrialization in the West. So unless and until we sort of pollute our rivers, unless and until we sort of cut down every last forest, we are not developed enough. That's the sort of message that we are getting, right? And it's possible to sort of subvert that. It's possible to sort of take that message and say, no, we don't agree with this. And institutions play a huge role in choosing to sort of amplify messages that are, in the end, unsustainable, not universal. If we are to follow the development method that current government and political entrepreneurs are trying to force upon us, we will not survive another 100 years. It is that unsustainable. It is not an abstract thing, it is real. The inequalities will grow, our ecology will be shattered. So what does an institution do at a time like this? I think it's great to understand that we can subvert it, and we don't have to subvert it by revolutionary ideas. We have to subvert it by compassion and by making an effort to teach differently. Let me just end here with one example. A very dear friend of mine who's a great economist, Professor Xonzoi, who used to teach at the Delhi School of Economics and now is in Jharkhand. Xonzoi would take students every summer, students from all over Delhi University. They would all register, and for 30 days, they would go to a village somewhere in Jharkhand or Bihar and work to create a ground-up database of what villages need. In summer, school will be closed, so all of these people all the 30 or 35 boys and girls would stay in the village school. They would do the baseline study, and they would study economics from being with people. And not all 30 of them, 35 of them would become revolutionaries or reformers like Jean himself, but they would be much more thoughtful. They would be much more sort of sorted, and they would, as they graduated, they would never forget that experience that they had. So I think we need to do things like that with education.
Thank you so much for that response. There's one there, Moa. I think he has a question, and after that we can come here.
Sanjay, thank you so much for the powerful lecture. I just have two questions, which one related to multiculturalism and the second to academic freedom. The first question is that, how do we contextualize or envisage a multiculturalism in a society insecure as Naga society? I'm asking this in the context of, for example, during the recent election to the urban local bodies, the Apex student organization in Nagaland came up with a directive, saying that non-local shouldn't be allowed as nominees in the civic body. So that's the question: how do we balance our insecurity with our need for multiculturalism? I am also asking this in the context of how multicultural societies, like in Europe, has been facing a lot of right-wing resurgence, challenging the very idea of solidarity and multiculturalism. My second question is, in the context of academic freedom, if we look in the context of Nagaland, it's my own view, okay, but my view is that, how can you engender academic freedom when all the colleges, or most of the colleges, maybe Batkai is an exception, are treated like, all the faculties are treated like students. They are sort of controlled by different rules and regulations, which is akin to something that exists in schools and other institutions. And at the same time, you will never see any faculty members or college teachers writing or exercising their expression on various issues in the public domain. Like, for example, as a media person, in the past one decade, I have seen that none of our many teachers, they never contribute articles on issues, or if we know that those who are working in the government institution have some certain obligation, but still then on non-controversial topic, they can always contribute. So how do we envisage, you coming from University of California as well as this before, where there is very good instances of activism among teachers and students. So how do we engender such an environment? Thank you.
Can you kindly give the mic to this second bench here? I think Sanjay can take 3 questions and we can close the session.
Thank you for this opportunity. What a moment, what a time for me. In fact, it's homecoming for me. I was a student here. By the way, I'm Dominic Kanyu. I serve as a principal in one of the private colleges here in Dimapur. Sir, Barbora, I have so many questions, but let me just end it with 2 comments. One with respect to India, and another with respect to international relations, especially the Middle East crisis. In the case of India, multiculturalism, the idea permeates, in fact, it's protected by the Constitution. It runs through articles or preamble, fundamental rights. directive, principle of state policy. On paper, it looks perfect. On the ground today, sir, as you analyze our region, India as a whole, is it ideal? Is it doing well? Where have we gone wrong? I want you to address that one. Is it because of education? Is it because of the powers that be? Next is America and the Middle East. The most powerful country or nation in the world today, sir. I think you mentioned about this, Palestine, the issue you have raised, the horrendous nature of the bombing campaign. But is it possible without Americans? Is it possible without the support of the Americans? I'm just wondering, the best philosophers, the best mind, the best preachers, the most powerful nation, the best resources they have. And then they come up short. As we speak now, the American might, the F-22 Raptors, the destroyers, US aircraft carrier, they're already in the Middle East. Maybe it's a way of deterrence. Maybe it's trying to contain Iran. Maybe. I have so many questions. Now, one question is, where is it? Has it gone wrong? Is it possible to undo this one? Is it possible to entangle the umbilical cord between America and Israel? Thank you.
Thank you. Moa, I think, I don't know, I mean, the optics is, of course, as you're saying, that there's insecurity in society, and for me, I think multiculturalism cannot coexist with social inequality, right? The moment you have greater social inequality, I speak as a very dry, boring sociologist, and this is just a formula which is bound to succeed through decades and through over time. It's a universal truth. If you have inequalities, it is impossible to preach multiculturalism, right? From the government side. But on the other side, you see, if you flip the lens and you look at how people survive, let's say, inequality, is through acts of solidarity, right? As inequality increases in our societies, all of you here will understand this. As we find it difficult, those of us who are earning salaries, we find it at the end of the month, you really want that paycheck to come because things are getting more and more expensive, right? So for a lot of people in India, for a small population in India, it doesn't matter how expensive things are. They don't mind, but the rest of us do. And at times like this, it is very difficult for us to sort of think of any other way to survive except through helping one another. In our own personal experiences, we would know of lending money to family, friends, and others and not getting it back. These are not particular stories of one family. This is a universal story in every place where you see social inequality. So it's very difficult in places like this, where governments encourage inequality, for them to turn around and say we have to be multicultural as well. So I think, in a sense, both these struggles go together. If you want to be multicultural, you have to always fight against social inequality. And that is why Europe, the example that you gave of Europe, is a very good example, because in the last 70 years, in the last 50 years, Europe's progressive taxation has reduced. Europe has tried to become more like America, and it's paying its price right now. The welfare state has gone in Europe. It's under a lot of threat, and that is why there's a lot of resurgence of right-wing racist politics there. With regard to academic freedom, as an outstanding member of the media, I think you should encourage at some point people to, I think, again, So with regard to, I think, engagement, it is difficult, but I think somewhere we have to create spaces. I think it's mainly during times of crisis when you see people coming out of these silos that we have been sort of asked to occupy, the academic one, the media one, the research one. I think it's during times of crisis when it's most important to break them. One way of doing this, and speaking from my experience at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, one way of breaking, and also at the University of California at Santa Cruz, one way of breaking this is to make sure that there is an organic sort of connection between the classroom and the community, right? So in that sense, if that organic connection is there, it'll extend to the media. I think the media also, we have to now recognize, has changed quite a lot, with social media becoming omnipresent in people's lives. Legacy media is becoming more and more neglected. So somehow we need to bring people back. That's why I say radio is one way to do it, but we'll talk about that later. And Dominic, to your questions, where I think these are really international relations questions. I'm probably not competent to answer them. But in the few months that I've been in the United States, I have not met one person who agrees with their government's point of view. Not one. So in a sense, the reality is this, that the government of the United States has made a mess in West Asia. And that mess is something that different generations of people are opposed to, especially students. I think in America now, the big thing is that students refuse to abide by these policies of their governments. And one of the demands that they're making in the universities is that universities have a lot of money, and they are insistent that this money should not go for war efforts. So young people, like they did in the 1970s, are now coming up to say that this is not possible anymore. Whether it will change the political culture in the United States is still early to tell, but these are good signs. I think it will change with this kind of engagement. And where did we go wrong in India? I could fill up an entire thesis on this, but one of the things that we should talk about in India is that you see, in the since I think 1997, I use 1997 as a cutoff year because first it was the first ceasefire, meaningful ceasefire between the government of India and the Naga national organizations. For us in the Northeast, this strange word called development has become like a regular sort of, what is that medicine you use when you're ill? Paracetamol for everything. Right? It's a painkiller, paracetamol, it's everything. So in the last 30 years or so, 25, 30 years, we've had people who've told us that our problem is there's not enough development, and then the answer to that has been let's develop. And to do that, I think what has happened, partly Dolly showed you that, is the erasure of, the complete erasure of local history, local languages, and local cultures. And so I think if we push back hard enough, we will be able to turn the tide. One last thing. Our politicians can sometimes border on the absurd. Last week, there was a huge waterlogging in Guwahati. There was a lot of rain, there was water, people were stranded for overnight, children couldn't go back home. They were in the school buses. I was also stuck for 6 hours. And our urban development minister said, but that water, he said, is not Guwahati water. Guwahati water is dark in color. This is water from Meghalaya. It is red. So suddenly he gave water an agency that only, only someone who's a shaman or someone who's, who belongs to that other world can give it. So can even politicize the flow of water. And that is not a good future. Thank you.
All right, we're actually running out of time, but since there's a student who raised her hand, we'll give her the time, and I think we'll make this the last question.
Hello, I'm really sorry for the trouble, but I have this question lingering in me for a very long time, so I just wanted to raise this. When discussing culture and its related issues and violence, why do we often blame our cultural identity instead of examining our own consciousness when we call ourselves sensible humans? Oh, thank you.
Thank you. That's a very profound question. I think, and other indigenous societies, other indigenous experiences have always said that colonization is a very violent thing, right? It's a very violent thing. It's not just a military colonization. It is when we start feeling embarrassed about what our ancestors did. That is when colonization is most successful, right? And you can see this everywhere. You can see people being, at least in the Northeast, you can see generations of people saying, I want to be more, sort of more European, more Western, more Indian than my neighbor. So in a sense, the erasure of our past, the forgetting of who our ancestors were, adds to this violence. So we are also often making our culture really something to be embarrassed about. And I think, in a way, it's my plea, and I hope that we can stop doing that. I'm not saying that's why you start being uncritical of things about our culture that we should be critical about, but we should have a more, let's say, a more open view of how we can resist the colonization of our past through culture. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. At this moment, I would like to thank the Golden Jubilee Committee for giving me the opportunity to moderate the first two sessions. And also, really thank you for organizing this seminar. I think it's befitting a Golden Jubilee celebration to have researchers and academicians, established academicians coming to Patkai and sharing their experiences with us. So I hope that this would sort of be the direction in which Patkai would, move on as we look on with this 50th year of celebration. Thank you so much, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the third and the final session for this talk series. Before we proceed, shall we all rise once? Kindly stretch yourself. Prepare for the last 1 hour, all right? You can stretch yourself. Okay, kindly be seated. I hope that was refreshing for all of us. Good afternoon once again, respected principal, our resource persons, organizing committee, faculties, invitees from neighboring colleges, institutions, and Patkai family. I am Dr. Cindy, faculty from the Department of Zoology and I'll be the moderator for this last session. We have already experienced 2 very enlightening sessions, and we have one more to close this series of talk on the topic Artificial Intelligence in Action, from Canvas to Commerce to Cosmos. I believe this session will be the icing on the cake for this wonderful talk series. A wonderful introduction of our resource person has already been mentioned by our Sir, Dr. Sashi, so let me not mention about the introduction of our resource person, but a brief blueprint of what our resource person, Sir Hamish, will be dwelling with in this afternoon session. Our speaker, he will be dealing with introduction to artificial intelligence, which has already been opened up by our former speaker, Sir, and he will be continuing with history, working of artificial intelligence, and finally, its application in the field of arts, science, commerce, and cosmos. I believe we are now all familiar with how the session will proceed. Half an hour is allotted to our speaker, after which time will be open for question hour. I see students from different institutions. We would love to hear from you, from the Patkai community, faculties, and from the organizing committee and everyone present. Time will be open. So without further delay, I will hand over time to our resource person, Sir, after which, after he ends his presentation, time will be open for question hour. Sir, please take your time.
I'm not sure if this has reached here, but to all the students out here, Chin Tapak. So I live 2,500 kilometers away from here, right? But still this nonsense trend has affected me and you all equally. How does this happen? Before this, we had something called Badal Balsa Bijuli. I guess everyone was dancing to it. People in that time, I guess I was in Indore, and then I'd gone to Dehradun, and in both the places I saw people doing the same thing. So how does Instagram know what people are going to like or what Indians are going to like? Do you think Indians and, let's say, the neighboring Pakistanis or Bangladeshis are going to have the same trends? No. So how does this happen? So you might think, you might say algorithm or AI. So what is AI? But before this, I want to ask for some questions to you. Just a raise of hands. How many of you know what AI is and how it works? Like not the details, but the basics. Can I have a raise of hands? Okay. How many of you think AI is beneficial for us? And how many of you think AI is dangerous? Okay, the last question is, and whoever raises their hand and whoever does not raise their hand, I want you to remember your choice, okay? How many of you think AI is useful to you in your career? Okay, so let's say I can see around 15 hands. By the end of the session, I'm sure I'll have all hands up. So we start with what is AI? So AI has 2 words, artificial and intelligence. So artificial is basically something that is not human. Okay, something that is created. Even what a dog or an animal thinks is intelligence, it is not artificial. Next is intelligence. What is intelligence? Intelligence is the ability to capture information or capture data and convert it into information. What is data? Data is something like, let's say the temperature is 27 degrees Celsius. Information is, it is ambient. Data is, the temperature is minus 10 degrees Celsius. Information is, it is cold. So information is something that comes out of data and something that we can use. So artificial intelligence is the ability of a machine to capture data, convert it into intelligence. Okay? Now let's see how it all began. So I always like to say that war is the birthplace of invention. Many of the inventions that you see are either made for wars or for space. Like the safety pin that you use was something that was made because of space technology. So it's all started with 1943 when the Britishers, they wanted to break the Enigma codes of the Nazis, the way the Nazis were communicating with each other. They wanted something to, quickly decode that. That's how computing began. 7 years later, there was something called the Turing test. So this was made by Alan Turing. He was the mastermind behind breaking Nazis, like the scientist who defeated Nazis. So the Turing test basically tells if the computer can think like a human or not. Okay. 6 years later, we had something called the Dartmouth Conference. Now this you can call the Bethlehem of artificial intelligence. The word artificial intelligence began there. 4 years later, General Motors introduced Ultimate. This was the first industrial robot. In 1966, we had Shaky. So what Shaky would do is, let's say I tell somebody, buy me a bag of rice. Shaky would break it down into, go to the market, buy a bag of rice, pay for it, bring it to Patkai. So it could basically decode the information it's getting. Then in 1972, we had Prolog, the language of AI. And then we had something called AI winter. So AI winter happened because the funding to these things went down. So now what happened is private institutions did continue their work until around 1980 when we had expert systems that could mimic the way humans take decisions. Then what happened is in okay. In 1997, you had IBM's Deep Blue. So what it had done is it had defeated Garry Kasparov. So Garry Kasparov was the chess champion at that time. And that was a pretty shocking thing that had happened. Then in 2006, we had Deep Belief Network. So what this did is it revived interest in AI. In 2009, we had something called ImageNet that had come in. So yeah, the numbers are missing. Anyway, that's fine. So what ImageNet could do is it could look at an image and bring out information from it. I guess it's better we show the PDF. Just put it in full screen. After the Deep Belief Network, we had ImageNet, and then in the 2010s, from 2011 onwards, it was something that was the revolution of AI. That's when we had people from all over the world learning AI, making AI, using AI. Can anyone tell me what happened in the 2010s? So what happened in 2010s is education became democratic. We have people from University of California here. I could never reach the University of California because maybe I did not have that many marks, or maybe I did not have the resources or the money to go there. But after 2010, we had something called Coursera that came in. Or such prestigious universities, they had something called EDX that came in. So what they did is, they had their lectures put out on the internet. So now people from Dimapur could attend the University of California without going to California, but study what's happening there. Now what that did is, that democratized education. So everybody could learn the latest technologies and work on it. And then things happened very fast. Then in 2011, we had IBM's Watson defeating humans in Jeopardy. So Jeopardy is a game where you get an answer and you have to ask questions that would match that answer. In 2014, we had Google's DeepMind's AlphaGo, which defeated Go players. So Go is a game like chess. In 2018, we had something that not many would know, but it was GPT-2 was launched. In 2020, GPT-3 had come. We had started using GPT that time, and we were pretty amazed on the crazy thing that it is. In 2022, we had ChatGPT that came out. I guess everybody knows about it. In 2024, we have Patkai hosting a session on AI. And I believe in 2030, we have people from Patkai leading AI projects all over the world. Can I have something on the screen? It's important now. Where did you all run? Just open the presentation. Can I have the presentation? The system is not working? Okay. Okay, so how does it work? So before I have some maths on the screen, I'll tell you a story. So I have 2 nephews and a niece, and I have understood how machines learn more because of them than because of books. Okay, great. Can you put it on full screen? Full screen. Just a second. I think I'll need somebody to change the slide. Go to the next slide, next slide, next slide. Yeah, next slide. Yeah. So my nephew Dravin, when he was 9 months old, he knew 2 words. Okay. What do kids like to do? Kids like to eat, play, sleep, repeat. So he likes to eat, he likes to play. What does he like to eat? He likes to eat apple. What does he like to play with? He likes to play with a ball. So every red thing was apple, or he would call it appa. And I would ask him, what is this? He would say appa. Change the slide. Before this. So every red thing is appa for him. Can you turn off the lights? Turn off these lights. Yeah. So every red thing is appa for him. So a red dye is an appa. A red flower is an appa. A red, the Coca-Cola's cap is appa. So every red thing is appa for him. And every round thing is a ball for him, or ball, but he would say ball. So an orange is a ball for him, a grape is a ball for him, a basketball is a ball for him, and it was fine. Like, we don't scold or correct children, right? So it was all fine until he saw cherry, and he's like, oh, this is red, this is round. Do I call it an appa? Do I call it a ball? And he was confused. And that's when he learned a new word, cherry. So that's how machines learn. They learn, they make a prediction or a decision, and then they make a mistake, and they relearn. So how this works, okay, so I forgot my other nephew and niece, sorry. So my nephew and the other nephew and niece, they associated me with my beard. So every person with a beard is their uncle for them, okay? And there was an incident that my nephew, when he was 1 year old, he was traveling in a flight, and the person next to my sister-in-law was having a beard, and he was calling him Kaka, like in our language, it's uncle. And that person, luckily, he was a good person, so, he petted him. But this is how they would characterize. So that's how machines learn. They pick up one characteristic, and then they use that to learn. This worked well until I approached them clean-shaven. And they're like, oh, who's this man? And but they were like, okay, so the way he's playing with me, or his voice, or the way he's talking with us, reminds me of that person. So probably he is our uncle. So now they have associated more characteristics with me, right? That's how machines learn. So they have data, they learn, they make a prediction, they make a mistake, and they go back to learning, they make a prediction, go back to learning, and that's how it works. So now this is the first and the last slide that will have mathematics on it. So this is a neural network. So what is a neural network? Is basically a network of neurons. So neurons are decision makers that are there in everyone's brain, okay? So in machine learning, the ones who started developing it, they started developing the machine learning such that mimicking a human brain, okay? So you see the previous slide. No, previous slide. Yeah. So what happens here is, we have 3 layers. First is the input layer, second is a hidden layer, third is the output layer. So in input layer, you have inputs or data points coming from different places. So it can be temperature, it can be soil moisture, it can be the rainfall. Then you have something that is hidden. So at each node, you see every input is given a weight. And then using that weight, the value of the hidden, one of the node of the hidden network is identified. Okay? And then this value is put on forward, forward, forward until you reach a final value. Now when you reach a final value, you see in the first row, the prediction was 0.1, but the actual was 0.7, so it made a mistake. In the next one, it reduced that mistake. In the next one, it reduced that mistake. So now what happens is, we have something called back propagation. So the output tells the input or the network, hey, you made a mistake, you need to adjust yourself. And then this keeps on happening, okay? So this slide is how machine learning works. So now everybody here knows how AI works, okay? So why does it matter? Oh, sorry for the colors. But yeah, the first one has fire, the second one has wheel. These two, according, at least I believe, are the biggest inventions or the discoveries that humans have done. Because of fire and because of wheel, we are where we are today. After these came electricity, and electricity was something that changed literally everything. Like we had a power cut some minutes back and literally humans paused. 1,000 years ago, we did not have power, but we have got so used to it. Then came computers. So when computers were introduced in around 1980s, there were many protests in Mumbai on like these things are going to, make people jobless. And people had fought, people had broken down computers, which are pretty expensive that day. But today everybody uses a computer. So I believe AI is next in the list. AI is something that is going to be like ubiquitous to us. Everybody has a computer in their pocket, right? The mobile is a small computer. AI is also something like that. Everybody has AI in their pocket. Like just sharing an incident, before this I used to work in the field of forestry and agriculture with ISRO. So when we had gone to the forest, I did not know what species this is. I did not know what species of the insect it is. And like we did have rangers with us, but then we would have this, we would be shy to ask, sir, ye kya hai? Because we would be like, this person will think, he has come from ISRO, and if he is asking me what this is, what research is he going to do? So we used to quietly remove our phones. We used to open Google Lens, take a photo, and see, oh, this is this. So that's what we used to do. So now the next question is, does it matter to me? This comes from the question on, does it matter to you and your field? So let's see that. So first I'll address some art students. First we'll look at some applications of AI in arts. So the first thing that we are going to see, I think, is art recognition. So this is a company in Switzerland. What they do is they can identify fake arts. So you know Mona Lisa, you know arts by Picasso, and you also know that you can also get a painting of Mona Lisa in the Dimapur market, but that's not the original one, right? But it's pretty close to it. So this company identifies that, and there's a lot of money in it. Like you see paintings by famous artists going for crores. So such things are very expensive, and this company, in less than like 3-4 years of existence, what they have done is, they are AI models or they are machines. They have learned how artists paint. They have learned what art strokes that particular artist makes. So the machine knows how Picasso painted. The machine can differentiate between what a Picasso has painted and what, say, let's say, Da Vinci has painted, and it can identify whether it's a real work of Picasso or a copy. So for whoever is interested in arts, this is how AI affects you. The next one is Team Lab. So what they have done is, they have a big art gallery in which if you go today and you see something, you can't come back and tell your friends that, I saw this, I think you should go. Because the art there does not change every day. It changes every minute. And any idea on what it depends? It depends on how the people are spaced in that room. So right now, it would create art on the walls in a particular way. If one person moves from year to year, the art is going to change. And all of it is going to put you into, people who go there, they say this is therapeutic. So this is generative AI. AI has now reached a level where it is creating art by itself. The next thing that we'll see is, I can convert thoughts to photo. Like if I, it's matching. Yeah, so if I had to draw this by hand, my hand art is so ugly, that I thought of putting it here, then I'm like, no, I can't. But then this is what I created using AI. I told it exactly what I want to see. So I told, put a person with this color shirt, giving a presentation in Patkai Christian College, which looks like a chapel. And this is what it created. Pretty close, right? So we say a picture is worth 1,000 words, so 1,000 words made this picture. I guess lesser words, but yeah. Next is DeepScribe. So what DeepScribe did is, they let's say you find, like as ma'am was saying, we need to preserve the culture. And what I believe is to preserve any culture, you need to preserve the literary works of it. If you cannot preserve a book of your language, you cannot preserve that language. So the last book of any language starts the death of that language. So we need to preserve literary works of art. So let's say the language, the Latho language, like, what's the language here? Yeah, so let's say this language has many pieces of like books here. But I don't know how many of you can read those books. But unless you all read those books, you all cannot transfer the knowledge that those books have to your children and to the next generation. So then that book is going to die, the language is going to die. So Google has this technology, Google Translate. Or what they have done is, DeepScribe did is, they trained their model to learn ancient languages, and now they found a lot of literature with those languages, and then it is easier for them to convert from, like translate from that language to English or whichever language you want. So if you want to read a book in your native language, but you don't know how to read that language, you can like just put a phone in front of it, open Google Lens, and it's going to translate it. You are going to read that stories, and this is going to help you, learn words that are kind of extinct and so on. Next is a script book. So what happens is a script writer writes a script, the producer produces it, director directs it, actors act, and then the movie flops. There's a lot of money, time, everything that has been wasted. So what script book does is, you give a script to it, you tell who the cast is, it is going to run through a model, and it is going to generate around 400 parameters. And using those 400 parameters, it is going to tell you hit, flop. Like, it is that advanced. Like, you don't even need to produce a movie to understand whether the movie is going to be a hit or a flop. So yeah, like, whoever is into arts and was so far thinking what AI is going to do to me, this. Next. Okay, so now, does anybody know how many, like when Sir asked about the state, the answer was, what is a state? Each state, or whatever we call a state, has its own set of rules. So if you want to build a building here, you need to check which rules you are going to break. So what AI lawyer does is, it has read all these books. You tell it the problem, it will tell you these are the possible problems that will come, these are the possible solutions that will come. Like in India, we need to follow many rules. We have the constitution, we have the Nyaya Sahita, we have many such rules for everything. Are you going to, like look through all of them to do any work? This is going to do it for you. So how lawyers use it is, lawyers put the case in as much detail as possible, and the system is going to tell you this is how you can fight the case. This is the laws that you can use to support your arguments. So I guess this was a gist of what it can do to people from the arts domain. There was something that I forgot to mention is, like Dr. Yantan, he teaches international relations. So what happens in international relations and what happens in negotiations is, no country wants to hurt each other. So what they do is, they record these meetings, they look at the micro expressions, the smiles, the movement of the eyes, the words that they've used, and they run it through a sentiment analysis. So what sentiment analysis tells you, is this person saying the truth? Did I hurt this person? What word hurt this person? What clause hurt this person? And that is going to help me understand, how do I deal with this country, or how do I deal with this party or this person going further? This is what AI is doing for you. Next, we go to something in the commerce domain. So this is a project that I had worked on around 2017-18, I guess. So I had a client who came and told me, like, we have a lot of forms and we need somebody to, put them in a database. So do you have data entry operators? So I told him I do have data entry operators. I have 20 data entry operators and they would cost this much per hour. And I am a very lazy person, like ultra lazy person. So what I did is I built a system that took that form, read through it, put it in a database. So it reads what humans are filling in the form, and it's converting into a database. So gone are the days when you had a person looking at your form, oh, this Y, A, N, T, H, N, like it's like the system is going to read it and just put it. And everybody can do it, like Google has their API to do it. So like, can anybody think of an application for Patkai? We have admission seasons going on. We have thousands of applications coming in. This can work there. Next is agriculture. Like, this is something that I worked on and I was awarded by the Ministry of Agriculture in May. So how did this come here? Okay, this comes here because, so what we did is from satellite images, we can identify which crop is growing, what is the health of that crop, whether that crop is going to fall sick in the next 2 weeks, when to harvest that crop, how much yield is going to come, and so on. Where is this used? This is used by insurance agencies. You have this Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So when we used to go on field visits, and I used to go to talk to the farmers, many farmers would be hostile to me. You know why? Because they have told the government there was a flood and my crop is lost. But my system tells the government, no, it has not been lost. So this is where insurance agencies try to understand whether you really deserve that claim, whether you should be getting a claim. Going further, how much premium to charge you. Let's say an insurance agency, they all work for profit, right? So they would like to give their insurance to people who are healthy, because if you are healthy, the chance of falling sick is less. And if the chance of falling sick is less, my chance of paying your hospital bills is less. So I'm going to save that money. So there are algorithms, like in Dubai, there is an app that rewards you for walking, because walking is related to good health. So what it does is, if you are walking, let's say 5,000 steps each day, if you are eating well, that means your chances of falling sick are lesser. So the insurance agency is going to come after you, please take my insurance, please take my insurance. You give it to a sick person, or you tell an insurance agency, go and give insurance to a sick person, and they'll give you 1,000 reasons why not to do that. Next. Then the PayPal, MasterCard, they use these AI technologies to discover trends that are inconsistent. Let's say this person has a credit card, he is sitting in Dimapur, but he has transactions in Dehradun, Indore, Ahmedabad, Mumbai, all in the same day. So the machine is going to identify this, and it's going to raise an alert that there is something suspicious going on here. So this is how AI is helping in the banking industry. E-commerce, let's say you want to buy something, and let's say the delivery date is 1 week away. That is case one. The case two is the delivery date is tomorrow. You are going to be more ready to buy something that's going to be delivered tomorrow, right? So that's how Amazon sells things. Amazon also has something like, they have plans that there'll be like an aircraft that is going to hover over Dimapur, and it is going to have things that Dimapur needs, so that if somebody wants it, it's going to be delivered same day. Like, that's how crazy Amazon is working. So how does it identify what Dimapur needs? It will see what are the recent orders that people in Dimapur are placing. What are the recent orders? What are the orders that people in Dimapur placed last August? What is the kind of trend that's being followed? And then they are going to tell their suppliers, like, put those things closer to Dimapur so that when somebody is ordering it, we can deliver it the next day. That is going to increase their sales. So this is how e-commerce works, uses AI to optimize their supply chain. Enough of arts and science. Now let's see how it's revolutionizing science. So this is zebra medical vision. Like, how many times have you seen X-ray, and how many times have your neighbor, whenever you've been sick, a random neighbor comes, he looks at your X-ray and he tries to say that, okay, this is the problem, that is the problem. That person does not know anything about medicine, but he's going to act as if he knows everything. So we have this zebra medical vision's tool AI1. What that does is, you feed it an X-ray or a CT scan image, and it is going to identify anomalies. Like, this can be a problem, this can be a problem, and so on. Next. Then there is IBM Watson for oncology. So what this does is, cancer is a very delicate matter. Like, any wrong intervention, and the patient is, like, anyway the patient is very sick, and the cancer is going to spread faster. So what IBM Watson does is, and what many hospitals in India use this tool, is that they feed their patients' reports into the system. The system understands what the patient is going through. The system reads through a lot of literature on how to solve this problem, and it is going to give a kind of a recommendation to the doctor on what can be followed. This Pango and Pixelo, this is a project that I was working on in 2018-19. So what Pango is basically a nutritionist brand. So what it does is, it gives its nutritional plans to more than 1,000 of its clients. And it tries to, and the app, as you can see, it has, you mark what you've eaten from the nutritional plan. Then the system, it tries to understand, oh, like this person has been recommended to eat this, but he has not been following that. So the next time when I make a diet plan for him, the system will tell you this person is eating, like is not following the diet plan, and these are the problems where he is failing. So recommend alternatives to it. This is how they are doing it. Then Siemens AI, so what Siemens does is, it has their equipments all over the world, and it has some equipments in very critical areas. And so these areas, let's say there is a dam that operates on the basis of this. Any problem or any downtime, if one of the equipment is spoiled, then that dam is going to be closed for some days, and that's going to cause a lot of problems downstream. So what they do is, they have sensors which can predict when a machine is going to be faulty or when the machine can go bad, and they send that machine before it's spoiled so that there is minimum downtime. Next is Tesla self-drive. Like you all must have seen videos of self-driving cars. They will soon come to India. So what it does is, it has many sensors. Like when we drive, we look front, we look at the sides, we look behind. So that's what this system does. It tries to see what's in front of him, it tries to see what's around him, neighboring him. And it also has the path that is fed through navigation or through GPS, and it follows that path. So this is where now humans can drive for a bit, they can relax for a bit, they can not drive, just travel, and so on. I don't know how much it will succeed in India, because suddenly there will be a pothole, and then, but still works. So this is General Electric. What they have is, they have grid analysis. So what grid analysis does is, like we have this electric supply. So this electric supply is not necessarily coming from any one electricity generator. The electricity that we get is supplied from many different generators. So what is, it is then combined into a grid, and that grid then disseminates it. So what this AI grid does is, it tries to understand where a demand might increase. In this case, what they also do is, where there might be a risk, if there is a heavy rainfall or if there is a possibility of a cyclone, then it's going to alert the grid manager that this part of your grid can be a bit problematic, so then find solutions for it. So this happens before the problem arrives, and that ensures that we do not have power cuts in critical infrastructure. Then this is PierSight space. This is where I'm currently working. So what we are doing is, we are using the power of AI and satellite technology to detect something called illegal shipping. How that affects is, if you have illegal shipping, that's going to, like the people are going to fish more than what they are allowed to. That's going to reduce the number of fish there. If you have lesser fish, you have lesser fish eating the algae or the phytoplankton. When the fish reduce, the algae increases, and then that leads to eutrophication, and then that zone becomes a dead zone. So this is the problem that we are trying to solve. We are also trying, like, we also work on catching illegal activity that happens in the oceans. This image is very close to me. Can anyone tell me what this is? This is a crater on the moon. This is the work that I used to do at ISRO. So we had used AI technology to try to detect water on the moon. And like, this is one case where AI was used in the cosmos. We started with Canvas, we moved to Commerce, now we are into Cosmos. This is the outer space. So Galaxy Zoo is an open collaborative project where we have scientists from all over the world, students from all over the world collaborating on this project. What we are trying to do is, we are trying to identify galaxies millions of kilometers away. This is like, does anybody know what this is? This is Mars. The vehicle that you see is Perseverance, and that uses AI to navigate Mars. And we always like know chatbots like, hey Siri, hey Google, Alexa. I have this child's photo is that in the US, there was an incident when a child's mother, she had collapsed, fainted, and he used Siri to contact 911 because it's a 4-year-old child, he does not know how to dial, but he knows how to talk to Siri. He told Siri to call 911, he explained the situation to them, help arrived, his mother was saved. Next. How can we benefit from it? So what AI does is, it can learn a lot of things. Like let's say you can read 10 books in a month, AI can read 10,000 books in a month. It can identify patterns in that, and then using that patterns, you can take decisions, so you can make some predictions. So now, how many of you think that AI is relevant to your field? Right. So where do we begin now? So 3 steps: think, talk, collaborate. Think about what? Think about the problem that you want to solve. So how to do that? First step is to research what is existing in your field of interest. Then try to find a problem that is existing in that. Think of an ideal solution where that problem does not exist. Okay? So now as domain experts, you know what the problem in your field is, and you know what the solution should look like. You have to find a way to reach that solution. Next step is talk. Talk to whom? Talk to the computer. So how can you learn how to talk to a computer? So you have many options. There is code.org, Khan Academy, Coursera. Google's Teachable Machine is something that everybody should look at. It is where you can train your own AI models knowing literally no code. You don't need to learn to code. You need to just use this machine. Now these things should be done by 2 different types of people. We have people from computer applications here. We have people from the IT here. So they should be focusing more on the talking part, and the people from other domains should be focusing more on the thinking part. And then comes the next step, where you collaborate. You collaborate with these people who know how to talk to a computer, because people who know to talk to a computer may not know what the problem is. Like, I fall in that category where I know to talk to a computer, but I don't know what the problem is. When I go to the forest, I have no idea what the forest is, and when I go to the agricultural field, like now I know a lot, but when I started, I had no idea how a soybean looks. 11 months down the line, I am awarded by the ministry for work on detecting soybean. So that's where people from the soybean field came and helped me. So that is how you should collaborate. How do we collaborate? Go back to it. So start a programming club or start an AI club in this college. And that AI club should have people from different fields, and they should talk, they should collaborate like, hey, this is the idea. The programmer will tell you, this is how we can approach it. You also have Google and Facebook supporting these activities. So there are Facebook developer circles, Google developer circles. I don't know how active they are in this region, but of course Patkai can be the leader of anything in the Northeast. That's what I know about Patkai. So start this, do this, and think of a solution. I also have a task for you. Patkai already has AI in the name. We just need to bring AI in the college. I have 2 tasks or 2 challenges for you. One is a 50-day challenge, one is a 500-day challenge. A 50-day challenge is to identify a problem that exists in your field and how AI can solve it. And it can be as utopian or as imaginary as, it can be as crazy as, like when I started working on the moon, within the first month, I asked my boss, when can I go to the moon? It can be as crazy as that. So let's do that over the next 50 days, okay? In the next 500 days, that is, it comes to around 22nd December 2025, I guess. Let's start working on that idea that Patkai is solving a problem in the real world using AI. And do you think you have nobody to help you? There are many people to help you. You have people from University of California, like that was one of my dream places. You have people from there who can connect you with people. You have me who can collaborate with many people, and we can solve problems. Now I want to ask the same question that I started with. How many of you know how AI is or how it works? Many of you know now. How many of you think AI is beneficial for us? How many of you think AI is dangerous for us? Of course it's dangerous. Like, I'll fight on both the cases, but I'll always fight why AI is good. Like, pro AI always. And how many of you now think AI is useful in your career? Like, now I see more hands, and that was the agenda of coming here. So I've traveled 2,500 kilometers to be here. I've shared things from my more than 8 years of experience. I spent around 22 hours preparing this slide deck. You have spent 1 hour listening to this random person coming and talking in front of you. Let us convert this into an investment. Like the challenges that I gave you, 50 days, 500 days, let's remember that. if any of you wants to start doing something in AI, if any one of you wants to, like take Patkai into doing AI, you can reach out to me. My email ID is shared in the next slide. You can reach out to Dr. Yanthan. He'll connect. And this is something that I always say, if you do nothing, nothing will happen. So let's not do nothing, let's do something. And I hope the purpose of me coming here to talk about AI, to kind of plant a seed of AI, that succeeds. So after 50 days, I want people to send me an email on this ID. This is my problem. This is a solution that I want to solve. And trust me, we'll work on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Hamish, for the very enlightening session. Can we have another round of applause for us, sir? We are strictly adhering to the time, so we have 10 minutes for questions to be taken before I open the floor to the audience. Sir, I have one query before I open the time to the audience. Based on the understanding of how AI works, we have understood that they work on the available data, convert it to information and provide it to us. The pros and cons can be debated. A number of pros has been put forward. But on this understanding that artificial intelligence works on available data, I wanted to know what is your view on the effect of artificial intelligence on human creativity. So based on this data, what will be the effect of this on our human creativity?
So artificial intelligence not only works on data that is available, now we have reached a stage where I learn from data that is available to create data that is not available, then use that to learn to make data that is not available, to learn from data, and the cycle continues. So how that is going to affect creativity is, like you saw the image that I created, so it is going to enable disabled, artistically disabled people like me to create new data. But it also has its pros and cons, of course, and regarding it works on data that is available, there are also many cases where a machine was fed images of, let's say, criminals, and unfortunately, there was a disparity in the data that it was fed. So a lot of the database had criminals who were of the dark skin. And then that AI started thinking everybody who is a dark skin is a criminal. So there are risks to it. But that's where you need to make sure that your data is very good.
Right, thank you. Questions from the audience? Time is open. You can kindly raise your hand. Right, one.
Hello. Okay, as an artist whose art has been stolen by AI, technically, recently I was on my Instagram feed and I came across an art which had been replicated and which replicated my art. So I went to the caption and noticed the hashtag AI. So I wanted to ask, would AI replace our job? And how do I fix this issue? How do I tackle with this?
So the question of whether AI is going to replace jobs is not just in the arts field, but in all fields. Here I would like to remind you of a time when people used to be carried by other people to go from one place to other. You had these palanquins, you had 4 people carrying them. You remember those scenes in the older movies? Those people lost their jobs when the wheel came. So many people will be losing their jobs, but then that's how evolution happens. In terms of art, no matter how good an AI is, when I was coming to Nagaland, I asked my friends, what do you want? And everybody told me, get us something that is handcrafted, not machine made. now the cost or the uniqueness of something that is made by hand is much more than something that is made by machine. And eventually that's what's going to happen. Like AI may create anything for you, but then it's going to be free. And whatever you make, that's going to earn a lot.
Do you have more questions? Yeah.
Hello. My name is Ichung Chawang. I study international relations in Northeast Christian University. So, regarding AI, most of us are concerned about our jobs, that AI will replace our jobs. So, based on that, I want to ask this question. So, sir, do you think there will come a time where the humans will live the life the way they want without having to work for money? Like the robots would be the one working for them, the AI. So we'll get most of them for ourselves to do whatever we want and not spend half of our life in our jobs. Will you want it that way? If yes or no?
I got your question. So this is where I say that capitalism will feed and lead to communism, where you will have equality for all. This is where comes the question of universal basic income. Probably we might reach that stage where, like right now what is happening is that yesterday was a Friday. I had a working day, but I could come because AI did a part of my work on Thursday. So that's what's going to happen. People are going to shift from 6 days a week to 5 days a week, 5 days a week to 4 days a week. A lot of the AI is generated using data that belongs to you and me. So that means that we are contributing to its generation. So it is going to lead, probably, that's what I wish, it's going to lead to a stage where people will work lesser, be more able to spend time with family and other such arts. So, and the question of replacing jobs, jobs are going to replace. I like to compare it to COVID. When COVID came, I guess I missed that slide in the presentation. There was a company who predicted that COVID will come, and the news article was published on 3rd March 2020. 3rd March 2020 is 20 days before India went under lockdown. 3rd March 2020 is 7 months before, there was destruction all around. So when COVID was coming, initially we were like, it will not come to Dimapur. When it came to Dimapur, we were like, it will not come to my house. When it came to my neighborhood, I started wearing a mask, right? So we know that this is going to happen, and no matter how much we talk, Sir spoke about the Lavender program, that's a technology where drones are used to kill. But the same drone has been used last week in Wayanad to deliver food packets. So AI is going to come, or rather AI has come, that's why I have come here. AI is going to affect all of us. Just like COVID did come, COVID did affect all of us, but we started wearing a mask. So the thing is, how do you adapt to it? How do you use it? I use AI as my intern. There are many things which I want to do, which I tell AI to do. I don't do it. I get free time. So it is going to use it as a tool. That's all I can say.
Sir, I have one question. Can the mic give sound to us, sir? Sir Dominic.
Thank you. Sir Hamish, congratulations, and I appreciate the good work that you're doing. Just one problem. I'm a big fan of machines. I'm a big fan of space, science, and all. In fact, when I was young, I thought I'd become an astronaut or cosmonaut. Anyway, AI in the field of science or transportation, medicine, space, that's fine. All, I appreciate it. We welcome that one, except that Sir has mentioned creativity. That is where I have some reservation. I don't know about you. Just take the example of multiculturalism. Ask the student to write an essay on multiculturalism. Student A, student B. A had relied on AI. B, original. Which one would come perfect? Definitely A. But he had no made no effort on himself to do that. I'm just taking an example, hypothetical example. What I'm saying is that people who had creativity, I can take the example of art also, I can take the example of poetry also, music also. It's destroying creativity. People who had real talent will be challenged by this one. Thank you.
Sir, AI also has created tools that detect AI. So if a student has written something using AI, you tell it to AI, AI will tell you this is AI written or this is human written. So of course it's going to like hamper creativity or compromise on the quality of students. Like when I was working at IIT Indore, I had students submitting AI generated assignments to me. I pass it through my AI tester and I get results, and I failed those students. Like I didn't care what it would do to their career, but I wanted to set in some ethics. So now AI, as I said, you have to use it as a tool. You have a scissor, a surgeon uses the scissor, a tailor uses the scissor, a craft artist uses a scissor, and I know of a priest who was attacked with a scissor. It's the same tool in a different hand. So use it as a tool, don't use it as a master. And we need to have cultures that I see at this college where religion or the ethos has such a great influence on how the students are learning. That's why when I came to this college yesterday, I thought this is where I need to plant a seed. I'm not coming here just to give a lecture, because I believe that AI will be in good hands here. So it depends on who is doing that. And we do have AI tools to detect these things. So.
Right, if there is time for one question. All right, let's three participants.
I am in the campus till tomorrow morning. I'll be kind of roaming around. You also have my email ID. If there are any questions you are shy to ask or something, we can of course meet either today evening or online.
All right, I saw three hands together, but since we're running out of time, I'll give it to one. Can I give it to sir for the question? Yeah. The other participants, you can, after the session, you can, I hope sir won't mind, take the questions outside of this session.
Yeah. I mean, I'm...
Yeah, so let's make this the last question.
Hi, Hamish. That was a great talk. For someone who does use ChatGPT, I think there's a lot of positivity to it. Am I audible? Yeah. I think there are a lot of concerns regarding the ethicality of AI, but I'm not going to dwell in that. I'm going to go more towards the environmental factor, because I know that AI uses a lot of energy. It's a high energy consumption tool, very, very powerful tool. I've also learned of some studies where people also connect AI with water, because water is a source of energy. And companies are also setting up bases where there's provision for energy. Could be solar, could be hydropower, whatever it is, but I just wonder, if it is important for people to also talk about this factor. When people use AI, they should also know that there's some sort of payoff going on somewhere else in some part of the world. While I'm here using ChatGPT, I know that I'm conscious that somewhere in the US or some other country, in some other part of the world, someone is producing that energy to power this. So that's one question. I thought maybe if you have some idea, maybe you can throw some light on it. Thanks.
That's a very good question, and that's a concern that, as I said, before this I was working in the domain of forestry. So I do have concerns for the environment. But then the thing is that there is everybody, different people working on different things, different people taking their own field forward. We have AI people taking AI forward. We have ecology people taking ecology forward. We have electrical engineers and researchers going forward in the domain of having more efficient energy or more sustainable energy. The problem that you shared is not just with AI, it is also with electric vehicles. So do we continue petrol to stop electric vehicles? Even electric vehicles do create a problem of electricity, but then that is where we are solving the problem of the pollution to petrol. So we do have these concerns of electricity generation. That is where there is some company who is moving forward in nuclear energy. Now nuclear energy will also have some problems. So basically we are just working on finding the most optimum or the most sustainable solutions to everybody going forward.
Okay, with that I pronounce the end of the session. It has been a marathon talk series. I believe that the word that Sir has used, that I believe it's worth the investment today. I believe the time that we have invested for 3 talk series, I believe it is worth. I don't want to be giving a summary of what Sir has already been presented, because I feel I won't be doing justice. But as a moderator, a quick concluding remark. This is not a summary, but a quick concluding remark on this session. It was a wonderful session. This is how I would like to conclude. Artificial intelligence is a transformative technology with far-reaching impacts. It offers significant benefits, including improved efficiencies and new opportunities, but also present challenges such as potential job displacement, privacy, and security concern. As we look into the future, it is crucial to continue exploring AI's potential while addressing its ethical implications. By doing so, we can harness AI to enhance human capabilities and contribute to a prosperous, inclusive future. That's how I would like to conclude the session. A word of thank you before we officially pronounce this talk series over. I'm thankful to all our resource persons, to all the 3 wonderful resource persons. Our college is honored to have each and every one of you in our midst. We are delighted and we are enlightened with your wonderful presentation. To the organizing committee, a word has been mentioned by the former moderator, but I also like to invest that this is a wonderful program that has been chalked forward, and hats off to the organizing committee. Friends from other institutions, I can see somewhat here, to alumni, and above all as to the Pad Khai community. Thank you for your kind patience. And I pray that, and I wish that this will be a fruitful event for all of us. Refreshment is prepared for all of us. So for our faculties, invitees, and resource persons, it will be to my right, just outside the school. And for the students community, refreshment is prepared at the entrance of our Bonner Hall. So with that, we come to the end of this session, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.